As usual. Okay, we're good. Okay, welcome to our city council work meeting for Wednesday, October 8th. We just mentioned Councilmember Orrin is on her way, she's online, and Councilmember Hodges said he will be joining shortly. He's not online though, correct? Yet. He'll be here shortly. We'll jump in, we'll start with item 1.1, review of this evening's agenda. Any comments, changes?
Just for the, probably have public comment on that one.
Yeah.
9.2, so.
Andrew did say he needs to make it early to also, we'll tell him they can do it either time, yep. If you guys are okay with that, I can do public comment before that item too, okay? Okay. 1.2, future agenda items, anything from council or staff? Okay, move on to 1.3, council discussion of future citizen recognitions. Got nothing? Okay, moving on then. But item 2.1, September 2025 city status reports. Trevor, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We've got the city status report for this month. Earlier today, Communications Department posted the agenda for tonight as a map of Disneyland, and every item was named for a ride, or a ride was for an agenda item. So this is the It's a Small World city status report. The alternative name was the It Doesn't Matter Horn city status report. I like where they went with it. Let's see, building permits, things are moving there. We have single family condos and townhome units that have been permitted in September. There is no high rise of the Resistance quite yet. We're gonna stay on the Disney theme because Mike Malloy, our planning director, it's his birthday and he's a Disney nut, as am I and many of us here. Businesses are jungle cruising along, continuing to grow in a good way there. Our population estimate just crossed over into 64,000 or so. We're edging towards 20,000 housing units, 65,000 residents, and our vacancy rate of 4.1 is actually, it's even better than the Haunted Mansion even this time of year, so that's important. Hi ho, it's off to project updates, we go. Main Street USA median is moving along pretty well. I did wanna call out the planner retrofit in the front of City Hall. Getting done on time is amazing work by everybody involved there. Let's see, the sales tax in Credit Coaster is kind of smoothing out at this point. July is a typically low generation month for us, which we expect to pick up as we move out into the future, but we are stabilizing still again around that 75% from the population piece on our sales tax generation, whereas 25% from direct sales. And so that is a quick jaunt around the most magical place on earth, Caraman City. Any questions or comments from council or from you, Mayor?
Is that all your work or is that a little help with communication?
They started it, but all the rest of the puns sadly are mine. I cannot blame anyone for that.
Just one thing that may be helpful going forward in addition to the sales tax, which I mean is super important, but the main thing is of course population versus direct sales, and so we're done a good job tracking that. As we're adding businesses, I'd be curious to see the same sort of breakdown between residential property tax and commercial property tax. Mainly because that's what largely funds uniform guys over here. And that's a bigger part of our, at least my ongoing conversation, right? We budget.
Yeah, we don't get those monthly, so it would probably be a static image if we do it, or we can just give you something.
It doesn't need to be
special.
monthly, but yeah, just, I mean, even if it's year over year,
Yeah,
as we're at, because, but, I mean, sorry to digress into.
No, please go ahead.
Go down a rabbit hole for budgeting, but it's the time of year where we start painting the Golden Gate Bridge again, right? Just got done and we just start again on the other end. But my thing of always talking about balanced land use, right? So residential, yep, we get population sales tax from the state, we get property tax from that residential, but they all demand services. And that's not for the services, we want a commercial base. But same problem there, right? Some commercial users, so great to have a Walmart or a Target, et cetera, but then they require a lot more service than say something of that nature. So would just be curious to see kind of that breakdown, right? How much is,
we can do that.
as we track going forward, as we start to add some of these commercial areas, it's not just the sales tax, but that type of property tax will come in that we can kind of keep track of a little more as we talk about budgeting techniques going forward.
I think we've done some of that work, so it probably wouldn't be too bad to show you a couple years worth of kind of how that's changed. But it's really starts coming in November.
So it doesn't
kind
need to
of,
be.
it's more where we collect this monthly, we really get most of that in a month, but we can show you a year over year.
So property tax is more an annual thing anyway, but even going back the last 5 years would be really interesting to see, and then we can forecast that out as we see some of these areas come online too.
Great call out, thank you.
Okay, anything else for Trevor?
Are you a Disney adult? Do you go without kids?
Not anymore, that's for sure.
Question answered.
With new twins, you ain't going for a while either.
For a while.
Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, we'll go to 2.2, discussion regarding potentially amending city ordinance concerning road cuts. Bryce?
Okay, while John pulls up that presentation, kind of a quick background, we've noticed some holes in our ordinance as far as protecting our roads when they're brand new, newly constructed. We don't actually have anything in our ordinance preventing, a utility company from coming 6 months after we've built the road to say, hey, we have a permit, we need to put in a cut into the road to be able to, service a resident or, even their system. So that was kind of the origin of this amendment to the code, is really taking a look at a moratorium on road cuts when they're newly built. That's when they're most damaging and obviously have the biggest impact to our brand new roads. We don't want to be cutting them right after we pave them. So that's the origin. There's also some discussion based on the existing code and what we've seen as far as if we treat a road with like a slurry seal, that it's not a new pavement, but there is a treatment that has just happened, and then if some contractor wants to come in and cut the road, how do we deal with that, right? And so that's what this is intended to do, is really beef up our ordinance on road cuts and how we regulate them. And so, yeah, let's just kind of go through. Cool. So today, just for a little background, and this is a technical document, so I'll try to walk through it a little bit, but whenever there's a roadway cut, we have a restoration requirement of the road, which is pretty onerous. So imagine that they're installing a pipe or something in the road about 4 feet down. Let's just say this is the trench that they're gonna cut. This is the top of the road. So we're looking kind of at a side view of that. They have to dig down, put in the pipe or conduit, whatever it is, and then they have to backfill back up. And then we have the different layers of material that make a road. So a sub base, a base, and then the asphalt. And so this is what the restoration looks like, which is actually a big improvement from what it used to be. So back in the day, probably 20 years ago, it would just be they cut straight down, they put in their utility, then they fill it back up, and then they put asphalt on the top. Just one straight trench all the way up. Well, as you can imagine, there's quite a few problems that we've seen with that. And so about 10 years ago, they introduced or actually 15 years ago, the T-patch, which is you have your trench that you backfill, but then you go and cut outside and make a little bit of a T there so that you can compact the side walls of the trench. That's often what, we saw some settling and some issues. And so that was a weak point. So that was an upgrade. We said, hey, T-patch the road instead of just filling the trench that you're doing. Well, in 2017, we went even a step further, and by we, I should say the Utah APWA chapter. So it's not just Harriman making this change. Most cities kind of adopt and follow this change, where not only are we requiring a T-patch, but then once they build the T-patch up to the surface, they got to come back and mill out or grind out 2 inches of the road and fill that in, a 2-inch mill and overlay. So this is what our asphalt requirement looks like today. This really helps to make sure that we don't have a hard joint all the way down. So like if water comes in, it's only going to get to here hypothetically. Hopefully it doesn't actually do that because we have tack coat and in some cases crack seal here, but it doesn't get underneath the asphalt. That's where we see a lot of problems. So just a quick kind of background on what we require on asphalt restoration if there is a cut in the road. But this doesn't go to location, when the road was built. This is just kind of applied whenever. So just as a quick example of that T-patch, this isn't a real cut, but just a kind of conceptual example. This is City Hall we're looking at. So if we're looking out on Main Street, that would be the original trench cut. Then they would be required to do a 2-foot T-patch around the trench, and then 4 foot outside of that, they would require to be milled and filled back in with new asphalt. So our patching requirement is pretty significant. With that said, there were some holes in our ordinances, like I mentioned. So, skipped ahead. We are proposing amending the ordinance to add in a moratorium on cuts on new roads, as I mentioned. So 3 years after a road is constructed, we wouldn't allow roadway cuts. Obviously, there would have to be an exception for emergency leaks or urgent utility connections that were not foreseen. So, but in general, it'd be a moratorium on road cuts that are for brand new paved roads. And then we kind of go the next step that if you're within 5 years, so if you're on year 4 of a road or year 5 of a road, it's still a pretty new road for us. And it still has quite a bit of impact if we start cutting those roads. So it does allow cutting, but the repair is much more intense. It requires that mill area that I was talking about, that yellow square, to actually go the full width of the road from gutter to gutter. And then it also adds in 25 feet in each direction of the trench. And then, like I mentioned, there is a portion of the code that we're proposing dealing with when we treat a road. So a seal coat or a slurry seal. And then 2 years after that, it would be an additional kind of more heavy requirement for cutting that road than if it was, a normal road that hadn't been treated in the last 2 years. So just kind of a comparison. I'm not going to read all through it, but the existing ordinance, like I said, kind of the holes we're trying to fill. We tried to give these kind of some clear and easy to read kind of categories. Newly constructed pavements moratorium, if the pavement's less than 5 years old, or if it's been recently treated. And then some of this is carryover that, even if the road is public, but then there's some impacts to private property, like a driveway or something, it just ensures that the driveway, the private property gets restored as the condition it was before the cut in the road began.
So C is gonna revert back to the 5-year restoration platform? or is that?
That's actually a perfect question. So it's in between the 5-year and so this was our normal example. This is that 2-year treatment, so we're saying you gotta go all the way from gutter to gutter,
Okay.
but you don't necessarily need to do the full 25 feet additional in each direction. So it's kind of a tiered, depending on, the condition of the road and what has just been treated or if it's a brand new road. So, yeah, standard, if it's been treated by like a slurry seal in the last 2 years, or if it's been a new road in the last 5 years.
So I want you to think about Main Street. So the citizens, Harriman, paid $10 million to rebuild that new portion of Main Street. And then we finished that last year, have a utility come in, hey, we're gonna trench across it
Yeah.
and do this. I mean, if we were doing that, I would lose my mind at my own utility. So this has been common in other places to protect the investment our residents have made in that road. We do a lot of future planning, and so these utilities should be aware that we're going to rebuild roads. We meet with them regularly, so in some instances when they can't make a decision, they have the opportunity to bore under the road, do other things, but this is really to think about protecting the investment the residents put in the road.
I think we've all expressed frustration about this kind of thing.
Especially when you, sorry Teddy, but pick on the sewer district, and this is
What?
before your time. But tried to work with them ad nauseum on so many different projects, and they just don't seem to care.
Question. Per emergency, what standard are they required? The 5-year standard?
Yes, in that case, we would probably default to the 5-year standard.
Do you anticipate any pushback?
So already we get a little bit of pushback on contractors not wanting to do the full restoration that we're talking about. So I do anticipate that some will say, hey, this is a heavy cost, or in the moratorium, hey, this is bad for our business, we can't. But like Nathan said, there are options for, if it's a utility company that can bore underneath the road, or other options that they can work, in the park strip or something. So, yes, I do anticipate there will be some, because the cost really falls to the contractors or the developers that are building in Harriman now to restore the road or wait on the road. This doesn't necessarily impact our budget.
It doesn't fall on them necessarily. We're holding them accountable for trying to put that on to the residents.
Yeah, maybe that's a better way to put it, is that we're holding accountable the ones that are impacting the road to make sure that they are the ones that, deal with that issue.
Great.
So, so our recommendation was to come here, get any feedback, and if there is no kind of feedback, to come back to a general meeting with a resolution to update the code.
It'd be an ordinance to adopt.
Yes,
I just have a quick comment.
go ahead, Sherry.
I was just gonna say, I was driving actually this morning through the construction on the end of 134th, the Danzy development right there, and being very super frustrated with the fact I'm watching that road being all cut up again, and it's pretty much a brand new road. So I really appreciate this. We've seen it several times in several places throughout our city, and I understand, especially that curb to curb thing, it's gonna really increase the cost of this, but just like Jared said, it's just, we're paying for these roads, and we can't just, every time we turn around, have somebody come back in and chop them up as soon as they're done. So thank you very much for taking care of this.
Right, and it hasn't been explicitly said, but the problem is when it's not done to a higher standard like this, that section of the road deteriorates quickly, and then we have to pay, our residents have to pay the cost to repair it again.
Makes a weak point,
Yeah.
that was faster.
Yep, exactly.
Looks good.
Yep.
Alright, thanks.
I would probably just clarify that exception by the city engineer, and what the standard would be. So that's in the policies.
The restoration
For the
standard,
emergency, yeah.
okay.
I like that.
Okay, so that'll come back for us for,
Yeah, in general meeting for adoption of the code.
okay. Okay, appreciate it, Bryce. Okay, we'll go to 2.3, discussion of a budget amendment to fund the Stampede Bowl Trail. Anthony, welcome.
Thank you. So just a brief history about this trail. This trail was approved for construction back in May of '24. It's about a half mile trail that is a multi-use trail. It's just south of Black Ridge Reservoir up in our primitive trail system. We had initially anticipated some grant funding to construct this trail. We were unsuccessful this most recent go-around with the grant funding on this trail. We do, however, have a contractor in the area right now that's constructing the Bonneville Shoreline Trail just north of here. And we thought it might be a good idea if we were able to utilize that contractor while he's in the area to, as soon as he's done with the Bonneville Shoreline Trail, just jump up and dig out this trail for us. Not having the grant funding come through, we were hoping to use some funding from our maintenance budget for trails through the general fund. The construction cost for the trail is $36,500, which is roughly 50%, which is about $33,000 left in our trail maintenance fund for the rest of the year. But I think we haven't been able to get to some maintenance that we were anticipating to get to this summer, and right now we would like to be in the middle of doing some seal coating, crack sealing, and mastic sealing. Unfortunately, we just don't have the resources to do it right now, meaning the manpower to do it. The budget's there to support it, we just don't have the manpower. They're off dealing with some other issues in the primitive trail system. So we'd like to reallocate, if possible, some of those funds to construct this trail, just given that we have that trail contractor in the area. I would mention it's tough to get a trail contractor to take on a job of this size. We have reached out to every trail contractor that we are familiar with to get some pricing and quotes on this trail. None of them seem to be interested. So the fact that this contractor is in the area, is willing to do it as soon as he's done with the Bonneville Shoreline Trail, it's advantageous for us in that regard. But any questions or discussion you would like to have on this?
Where was the grant going to be from?
You are from the state, outdoor recreation grant. And we can apply for that in future, future cycles. We'll continue to apply for grant funding for these trails, but again, we just thought
Probably would cost more though.
Yeah. I'm assuming because he's already mobilized in there.
there will be some cost savings because he's already, some mobilization cost savings.
And is this relatively small for a
Yes.
trail system?
Yeah, it's just under it's about a half mile worth of trail, which for these trail builders, and that's, like I said, it's hard to get them to come out for a project this small.
This is money that is already budgeted to trails maintenance.
Correct.
We're saying that we're not gonna be able to use those funds.
We'll have a surplus in that at the end of the year, I believe, if we don't use it. I don't think won't have the manpower to get to the slurry seal, the mastic, and the crack sealing that we were anticipating using these funds for.
So, I always do the devil's advocate thing, right? So I get that argument for this right now and the reason to do it with them up there, but then there's the trade-off is the vacuum we talked about, I talked about yesterday. Alright, so we can use that money now and get this done while he's up there. But if we didn't do that, what would we do with those funds?
Or
What are
foregoing
the-
the maintenance right now,
Right, cause that maintenance is still gonna have to
be
be
done
done.
next year.
And we anticipate that it comes spring, we'll use the remainder of the budget to start into that same maintenance. And like I said, there would be a surplus in the budget that would, wherever it goes after that, Kyle.
Anthony,
It
can
would,
you
do
give
that
it probably
numbers
ultimately
again?
end up in capital projects.
But I guess my point is that same maintenance that money's allocated for still needs to be done.
Correct.
So if we take that money away from the maintenance, then does that maintenance not get done, or does it get done and other maintenance gets deferred?
Again, it's probably just gonna defer maintenance down the road because this maintenance is top of our priority list. We just haven't been able to get to it. We've had some turnover again in the department. It's delayed us and some issues with in the primitive trails that they've had to go up and take care of, so we just haven't had time to get to this maintenance. So it'll be top of the priority list, and it will defer other maintenance.
Anthony, what's the total in your maintenance? budget line?
70,000 for trails.
So then, to me, it's just the trade-offs, right? So then it's okay. I get the immediacy of he's up there and it's easy to do now. But I'm concerned about, and this goes to, keep looking at Nathan, we had a conversation yesterday about sustainable service levels. When we take money from that maintenance fund, it's deferring others
yeah.
down the road. And so the trade-off to me is, all right, another half mile of primitive trail. I have no idea what the usage of those things is versus, what you talked about is maintaining the paved trail system we have kind of in what I would think is more actively used areas. I'm not advocating one or the other, I just wanna make sure we're considering.
I understand your point, I understand what you're saying, it's pushing maintenance further down the road.
Well, then we're adding trails now to maintain, feels like we're already starting to fall a little bit behind.
Sure.
And that's manpower, right? We've talked about it, we're not getting, we haven't been able to give you another staff person. We're adding more, and I love the trail system, but now we're adding trail miles.
What does maintenance on these primitive trails look like?
We try to do all the maintenance through volunteer groups. Again, that doesn't always happen, so, and some of the major maintenance that has to be done requires equipment, machinery we have to take up there, so usually you can do a lot of hand digging, so just a lot of hand digging, rock removal, that sort of thing. But sometimes you get, every so often you're gonna have to go up there with equipment to cut out gullies, reshape trails, and that's kind of what we ran into this most recently. They're having to take the equipment up there to reshape some of these trails and make sure the water sheds off in appropriate places, it isn't washing out the trail down the middle, so.
And a lot of the maintenance we're talking about is actually on the improved trails, we just haven't been able to get, we're talking about crack seal and mastic, mastic is just a little thicker, a little wider kind of cracks in our paved surface.
Are there any safety concerns or trip hazard?
No immediate safety concerns. If we have safety concerns, we'll take care of those immediately. We'll drop everything we're doing to take care of any imminent safety concerns. But, it's just ongoing maintenance with the asphalt trails that would potentially be deferred if we decided to go this route.
Do you ever use the trail crews that the Division of Outdoor Recreation has?
Yep, they've been a great help. I think this last year we had them here for a week to do some digging on the I think it was a stomp and trot trail. And they come out for a week and they'll give us 7 or 8 people for a week, and they just go to town up there with a little direction from us. So they've been a great resource for us.
Is that a long line to use them, or how does that work, getting on their list?
It didn't seem like it was problematic getting on the list. You can only, use them 1 or 2 weeks throughout the summer.
Okay.
Because they try to get around to different entities, different agencies to help them out. But what they provide has been a great benefit to us. Yes, we definitely try to utilize them as much as we can.
And Further Harriman tries to get up there, they're doing a dig day this weekend, but it's still.
Mountain bike teams, they all tend to contribute to the dig days and maintenance on that. So we try to utilize the free resources as much as possible, the community resources as much as possible. So, and it's really, that's the majority of the trail work on the primitive trails. That's happening through volunteer efforts. The little bit that we do up there is pales in comparison to what we get through the volunteer efforts.
If we do get a future grant, is that go to future trails or can it
Well, it
reimburse
depends.
trails?
Yeah, it depends on.
Specific to whatever the grant.
Yeah,
Or to maintenance of trails?
You would apply for a certain section of trail that you would want to construct.
Only construction or like rehab too?
There's some that are applicable to rehab. Yes. And we've been successful in the past. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, we were successful at getting, I think it was $30,000 through that same grant to do some upgrades and total R&R on some of the asphalt trails down in Copper Creek. We did some total tear out down there and replacement down there on some of the trails.
I've heard the amount of money that is applied for is like far greater than the amount of money that they have to give away.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's a lot of applicants. The competition's pretty stiff for those.
What's the use or projected use of this trail, you think, or what's the need?
You know, I don't have a projection as far as numbers of people that are gonna be using it. I really couldn't say. Obviously, the trail system up there is highly used all throughout the spring, summer, and fall. I think it'd be highly utilized, but to give you a projected number, I don't know, Teddy, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
But this must be higher on the priority list.
Yeah, this is one of the few trails that we have approved right now for construction. So back when this was approved, there were a couple others that were approved alongside of it that we're currently working on in-house. Like I said, the Stomp and Trot Trail was one that we are trying to construct ourselves when we have time and utilizing volunteers to construct. We've got the Rodeo Trail area that was constructed by us in-house and volunteers as well. But right now, this is one of the only ones that we have left right now that has been approved for construction.
How many miles of trail do we have?
Up there, I think we're about 15, 16 miles of trail.
Do you know how much total?
Total with
All the city and.
Paved trails and everything, I think we're about 45 or 50 miles.
Okay, and we have, how many trail maintenance staff?
We're back up to 3 now. So Joe Zimmerman, he's our trail and open space lead. And then he has 2 guys that work under him. So we just hired one. He'll be starting on Monday. So
Try to
2
keep-
others under him.
It seems like we've always had an opening there. Maybe 3 allocations, but it's also a lot of miles of trail.
And I'll say that the majority of their time is spent on not open space, but weed mitigation here in the city, starting in early April all the way through fall. They're just battling weeds along the urban trail system. They'll jump up there in the hills as much as they can, but most of their efforts are spent down here in the city fighting weeds and mowing and trying to keep fire risks, any fire hazard down. So it's been a battle.
It's kind of it seems like it's not that big a deal, right, as far as a dollar amount, but every penny counts. From the sustainability thing I'll keep beating that drum. The financial planner in me has a hard time saying, take money from this bucket and put it in this bucket. It was allocated for this, and we're still gonna have to do this. If this were some sort of emergency, right, a trail got destroyed or something and we had to go in order to connect things, then that's a reason to maybe shift money from one bucket to the other. I would, and I know that this is somewhat immediate because it's up there and whatnot, but I would almost, anytime something like this comes in, instead of it being in a vacuum, I would need to know what the maintenance plan is, right? So we're gonna take money away from that. What are the other pieces of maintenance that get kicked down the road? Because you're not gonna get that 36,000 again. Those are pretty much not gonna happen, right? Those just go farther and farther down that list, and those things just don't happen. So the more heavily used areas, the pavement that needs attention, needs
My
generally the
question
higher
is,
priority.
what do you think the cost saving is because he's there? Are we talking 5, 10, 15% of the cost?
I wouldn't think that much. I think
Okay.
you're maybe saving.
But it's getting some,
Probably less than 5%.
okay, but it's getting somebody else up there too and wanting to do that.
That's my concern is like I said, we reached out to, I think, 5 different contractors, none of which responded. The only reason we were put in contact with this contractor is they're already under contract with Trails Utah, who is funding the Bonneville Shoreline Trail.
Okay.
We reached out to them to see if we could get their contractor's name and information. We reached out to him and said he could potentially fit us in at the end of the Bonneville Shoreline project.
Do you have any cost savings from having the vacant positions?
There was probably some, but minimal. I mean, it was open for probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks max.
So we were able to hire pretty fast
Yeah, we
then.
were able to fill it fast. We backfilled the position with a seasonal employee that we had hired.
Okay.
So that was a good pickup there for us. So it's probably minimal.
Jared, I think I'm with you. I mean, I love our trail system, but I just don't think this is the right time and the right.
I think we attack the grants hard springtime and see if we can't find somebody or get an early opt-in for
Okay.
digging. I mean, and get a jump on that, trail maintenance. Sherry?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I just don't think we should, I think that we have to be able to maintain the things we have before we grow more trails. And even though it's, you know, compelling to do it while he's there, I understand the argument, but I don't believe we should take away maintenance and defer that because it just is saying we don't have enough money to take care of the trails we have now. It doesn't make any sense to me. I would agree with the comments that have been made. I think we keep the money where it was designated and then we try hard to find another avenue of funding to expand the trail.
Fair enough. We will continue to pursue grant funding for the construction then. Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it, Anthony.
Yeah.
Thank you. We end up like the Oxbow jail.
Well, that's what I say. I mean, truly, like, all these county meetings I go to now, they're constantly talking about deferred maintenance. They're relocating their entire county building because previous councils have kicked the can down the road on stuff, which I think we've gotta be better about that.
So I want you to keep this discussion in mind when we have our budget discussion next meeting, cause it actually, it's that idea of a vacuum, and you can't, everything's related, you can't, one of the things we'll have to talk about with parks is we're short-staffed. We may wanna contract or try and
That's my
leverage,
thoughts. Yep.
if streets is contracting some crack seal, maybe parks jumps in there to try and get some of those. There are some
Take
things
some
we can do,
pressure
but
off you,
but there's,
hopefully we can take some pressure.
there's, none of this stuff happens in a vacuum, but sometimes our decisions are presented in a vacuum. So that was the conversation we had the other day, is how do we as staff help you keep all that in mind when you have the special interest coming in front? Could you please buy this for us today? Example I use is the swimming pool. We need a pool. We have one. We need a new one. It's $50 million. And we need a bunch of things. How does it fit? Instead of just, oh, this group's in front of us. So, not that this, I've lived that in other places, not here.
And this is how we could make it work and find the money for it, but what does that mean we don't?
So we'll have that discussion in 2 weeks. We're actually bringing you, so if you remember the budget, last time we did it, we went through a series of funds and we showed you all that as we've done it. We're actually, you'll still get that, but we're stepping back even further into the process at the beginning to talk about philosophy more. Okay, how are we going to do this? Give us some higher level direction so when we come back, we'll say, here's how we tried to take that in. So these aren't gonna go through like line items of the police department. This is going to be a higher level kind of philosophical side, but it is really what is our budgeting philosophy going to be? So that we as staff, when we start working on it, we have some direction from the council. So it's part of that iterative process we've been with the budget, so you get to weigh in earlier.
But Anthony, thank you for bringing, I mean, I love that you have that foresight, you know.
Sure. No problem. We'll continue to pursue that grant funding.
Would it be smart on some of that budgetary stuff if we're gonna outsource to have some sort of baseline of contractor cost or fees to outsource that? Other vendors rather than in-house and
Yeah, I think, so in other places, I think sometimes there's opportunities to internally to partner up. And, if one group is gonna go hire somebody for crack sealing, can we throw in other, you might do it as an ad alternate so we know exactly what their fee is, but then we're using them if they're out here already to do it, so. There are some opportunities, we'll have to weigh that every time we do that, whether it's cheaper to, sometimes in the short run, it is cheaper just to contract, or it might cost more, but you're not hiring a person. But that's part of that discussion next week,
get
is
what
how do we,
that total burden is, yeah.
How do we balance all that? Okay, well, that brings us to the close of our work meeting. Should we go to close, knock it out, or? I'll look for a motion to go into closed.
I'll make a motion to temporary recess work meeting to go into closed meeting for the following purposes provided by Utah State Code Annotated 52-4-205. Strategy session to discuss pending and reasonable imminent litigation. Strategy session to discuss purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, to discuss a proposed development agreement, a project proposal, or financial proposal related to the development of land owned by the city, and discussion regarding deployment of security personnel, devices, or systems.
Motion by Teddy,
Second.
second by Tara. Teddy?
Yes.
Jared? Tara?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to close. Who do we need? Councilman Newton, Todd. Yes.
Blake.
I am just like by the, I'm just right at the circuit city hall, I'll be in there
Okay.
in about 2 minutes.
We'll wait to start till you're in here.
Okay, bye.
Okay, we need Blake. We need Blake. Okay, everybody in here? We'll stay here.
Is mine good?
We'll wait for Sherry to get here.